Hello, welcome to this video on simultaneous equations. This is for GCSE level, and it's the second video in this series. The first one, we went through these types of equations where you have a number in both places that is the same, and so it's a very simple thing to solve. The same as here, you have a number that is the same. We are going to do in this video this type of equation which has different numbers, and if they have different numbers, you've got to do a trick. You've got to do a little thing before you actually solve the equation. So we'll talk about that in a second. What to do with these? Well, we already saw in the last video that when the signs are the same, that number which has the same number, so here there's 2y and there's 2y, the sign in front of it, if it's the same, the trick here is to subtract the two equations. Okay, this method is called the subtraction of equations or addition, as opposed to the substitution method. And what you do in this case is that you subtract the whole equation, the left from the left and the right from the right, in such a way that one of the two variables disappears. So what are the variables? X and Y. One of them two has to disappear. So if this is a plus and that's a plus, we've got to subtract them. But if they're a plus and a minus, then we've got to add them, the two of them, because they will disappear. So what happens if you subtract these two? 3x minus 5x was 2x, negative. 2y minus 2y is 0, so you don't have to put anything. 12 minus 16 is minus 4. So you divide both sides by minus 2 and you get that x is equal to 2. Once you have your value for x, you put it in here and you use this equation to solve for y. Once you have y, now you have both variables, x and y. You can put them in here and in here to check if they give you 16, and if they do, you've done it correctly. Okay, so we talked about all of that in the video at length, and in this one I just wanted to give you a reminder. Okay, that's how you do that one. This one is slightly different because this has a plus sign and this one has a minus sign. When that happens, you need to add them, because when you do plus minus, right, you're gonna add a negative 2y. Plus and a minus, when you see it like this, 2y plus minus 2y, plus and a minus is the same thing as a minus. 2y minus 2y is going to give you 0, so they're going to disappear. Okay, that's why we add them. We put a plus here so that they disappear. So 3x plus 5x is going to give us 8x. 2y plus negative 2y is going to give us 0, so I don't put anything here. Then I add again 12 plus 4 and I get 16. 8x is 16, divide through by 8 and I get that x is 2. Then I get this 2 and I put it in here, and that will allow me to find out y. Once I know y and the x, I put them both in here and here, second equation always, and check if they give you 4. If they do, you've done it correctly. Okay, so that was just vision from the last time. So we're going to go on to now the proper reason for this video, which is the slightly more difficult equations when there is no repeated number. Okay, apologies for the dog in the background. I hope it doesn't sound too loud. You're right. Okay. So what's the problem here? So we've got a 10 and a 5, so that's not the same number. And we've got a 2 and a 7, and that's not the same number either. So we need to do something to one of the two equations to make sure that they have the same number of x's or of y's, it doesn't matter. So in this case you should be able to see easily what to do. The trick here, because the 2 and the 7 are not in each other's timetable, but the 5 and the 10 are in each other's timetable, then we're going to focus on the x's and we're going to multiply this equation by 2, because then we're going to get 10 x's. And as long as we do that to everything in the equation, this side and that side, then the new equation will be exactly the same as this one, and we won't have a different situation. We will still be talking of the same x and the same y. So let's do that. Multiply the first one by 2, and what do we get? 5x times 2 is 10x, minus 2y times 2 is minus 4y, and 4 times 2 is 8. So now we have the two equations that we needed. We've got 10x that appears 2 times. That means we can now look at their signs and say, well, 10x is positive, and this 10x is also positive because they have the same sign. What do we have to do? So these two have the same sign, the 10x and the 10x. So to do there, we must subtract, because 10x minus 10x is going to give us obviously 0x, and that's what we want. We don't even have to write it. So we subtract them. Minus 7y minus 4y is the same thing as minus 7y plus 4y, right? Minus minus is plus. Minus 7 plus 4. Hopefully you know that if I start on minus 7 and I add 4, I go to the right, and here's the 0, then I'm going to end up with minus 3. So if I start with minus 7 and I add 4y, I get minus 3y, and here I subtract minus 1 minus 8. Well, this is 0, this is minus 1, minus another 8, I'm going to end up on minus 9. So minus 9 is my answer on the right. I multiply both sides by minus 1, and I get 3y is equal to 9. Divide by 3, and I get y is equal to 3. Now I use this guy, this equation here, to find x. So 5x minus 2y, 2 times y is 2 times 3, so that's minus 6, equals 4. I add 6 to both sides, and I end up with x is equal to 2. Now I've got my two answers. I can now put them in my second equation, always in the second one, and check if it's true. So according to me, x is 2, so 10x is 20 minus 7y, and y is 3, so 7 times 3 is 21. 20 minus 21 should give me minus 1, and here it says minus 1. So that's fine, I've done it correctly, and this is the correct value for y and the correct value for x. Okay, so that's what to do with these equations, where you have one of them that doesn't have the same number as the other. You have to multiply one of the two equations to force the other one to agree at least in one of the two numbers. In this case we chose the 10 and we chose the x, because these two are in the same times table. Another example which is slightly more awkward to look at is this one here, which is 2x plus 5y equals 3, and y equals x minus 5. Okay, this one, before we do it, what I recommend is that we actually move them around so that they look similar. Okay, we need to move them so that the x's and the y's are on the same side, because here you have the x's and the y's on the same side and the number on the right, and here we don't. Here we have the y, and here we have the mixture of the numbers and the letter x. So let's move it to make sure that we have the same thing, same structure. So what do we need to move? This guy, right? What is he doing? He is adding, so I must subtract x from both sides. Now this is going to look a little bit strange, but if I subtract x, there's two ways of doing it. I can either write, if I subtract x from the left, you can write this, y minus x is equal to minus 5, because I've subtracted the x, so the x disappears. So this should hopefully make sense to you. This is the normal way of subtracting x from both sides. But actually I want to have the x's in front of the y's. So the way to do that is this minus x, you move it there. Okay, and if you do that, you might ask me, well, what happens with the y then? If I add a minus x here in front, then what do I do with the y? Well, the y was positive all the time. Here it was sitting along and it was completely positive. So that positive appears here. You can write it there, and then you're left here on the right with minus 5. And now you have this equation and this equation. Okay, and you have the x's on top of the x's and the y's on top of the y's. If that thing that I just did didn't make a lot of sense, just try it for yourself. If y minus x, you want to find out if this is the same as that, then try it. Whenever you're not convinced about something, try it with a few numbers. Imagine x is 2 minus 2 plus, imagine y is 3 plus 3. Okay, minus 2 plus 3 would be minus x plus y, and y minus x would be 3 minus 2. So try it both ways. Minus 2 plus 3 gives you positive 1. right? You're minus 2 and you add 3, you cross the 0 and you end up on positive 1. Similarly, if you do 3 minus 2, you're also going to get 1. So it's the same to do minus 2 plus 3 as to do 3 minus 2. It's exactly the same. And that's what we've done here. Minus x plus y is the same thing as y minus x. So these are our two equations. Now I'm going to delete this one that I have in the middle so that we avoid confusion. Delete this one here, but otherwise if you were working on paper, the best thing is just to write them again. Now look at these two. The x's are not the same number and the y's are not the same number, so we're going to have to use the same trick again. Here you have two options. You can either multiply this whole equation here by 2, in which case you're going to match the 2's, or you can multiply the whole equation by 5, in which case you're going to match the y's. Okay, it doesn't matter which one you do, as long as you do it properly, you will get the same answer for x and y. So I'm going to choose to match the y's, just because in the previous question we did the x's, for a bit of variety. So if we match the y's, it means we're going to multiply this second one by 5. If you multiply this by 5, you get minus 5x. Multiply the y by 5, you get plus 5y equals minus 25. Now this equation, we just changed it by multiplying it by 5, and so now we just have to consider these two equations. We need to decide if we're going to add them or subtract them. So what is the same? The y's. So we don't care about the sign of this to decide, we just decide on the sign of the y's. Plus 5y plus 5y, same sign. Okay, I'm going to delete this out of here so it doesn't distract us, and I've got a 5y and a 5y which are positive, so I need to subtract the two equations so that the 5y disappears. So if I subtract this equation from that one over there, 2x minus minus 5x is 7x, because they add 5y minus 5y, it's going to be 0, which is what I wanted. 3 minus minus 25 is 3 plus 25, I end up on 28. Divide by 7 both sides and I get 4. And then that's it. The rest of the system is the same. You put that answer for x, you put it here into x, you find out y, and then you put it in the second equation to find out if you've done it correctly or not. So it's all exactly the same after that. Okay, but the trick, I hope the trick there was useful. You've got to do that whenever you have these kinds of equations to make sure you end up with two the same number. Alright, so hopefully that was useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.